There comes a point when the senior is no longer asking whether the bill looks official. It does. It has to provide a name, the account number, the amount due, the date, the payment instructions, and the language that makes it feel final. It may even say patient responsibility, as though the system has already made the decision and the patient's only remaining role is to pay. But this episode begins with a different assumption. A bill is not proof, a balance is not proof, and before money leaves the senior's hands, the bill has to explain itself. That is what make them prove it means. It does not mean refusing to pay a legitimate bill. It does not mean accusing every provider of wrongdoing. It does not mean ignoring notices, deadlines, collections, or legal risks. It means something much more practical and much more disciplined. It means taking one bill at a time and bringing it back to the facts. Who sent it? What care does it belong to? Does it match the records? Does it match the insurance explanation? Is the amount final? Is something missing? If the provider says the patient agreed to pay, where is the document? If the bill is based on denial, where is the reason? If the account has gone to collections, where is the proof the amount is valid? This is where the medical bill review tool comes in. It is not a weapon. It is not a legal form. It is not a promise that the bill will disappear. It is a way to stop the facts from scattering. The tool helps the senior slow the process down, identify the bill, match it to the care, compare it with the records, request proof, and keep track of every call and every answer. It gives the senior a way to move from fear to control because the system already has its records, the provider has records, the insurer has records, the billing office has records, and even the collector has the records. The senior needs a record too. That is the purpose of podcast 3. Not panic, not avoidance, not blind trust. Control. One bill at a time, one clear standard. Before you pay, make the bill prove where it came from, how it was calculated, and why it belongs to you. Do not sign blind. Do not pay blind. Make them prove it. Today we are going to do something different. We are not going to talk about medical bills as a vague problem. We are not going to treat the senior as helpless. And we are not going to pretend the system is simple when it is not. We are going to take one confusing bill and walk it through a method. That matters because most seniors do not get into trouble with medical bills because they are careless. They get into trouble because the bill arrives after the care, after the coding, after the insurance decision, after the provider accounting, and sometimes after the balance has already appeared in a portal or been pushed toward collection. By the time the patient sees the number, the system may be acting as if the matter is settled. But settled is not the same as proven. In this episode, we will use the medical bill review tool to slow the process down. The purpose is not to avoid paying a valid bill. The purpose is to stop a confusing bill from controlling us through pressure, fear, or vague explanations. The tool gives the senior a way to take the bill apart without becoming a billing expert. It helps connect the chargeback to the care. It helps compare the provider's demand with the insurance explanation. It helps identify what is missing. It helps preserve what was said, who said it, and what still has to be answered. That is the goal today. Stop paying blind, get the facts, make them prove it. Because a senior should not be expected to pay a bill simply because it looks official. The bill has to earn trust. It has to show where it came from, how it was calculated, and why the balance belongs to the patient. That is what we mean by senior power. Not panic, not avoidance, control. This is where the idea becomes practical. A senior does not need to become a medical billing expert to protect themselves. They need a method. They need a way to slow the bill down, hold the facts together, and keep the system from turning confusion into pressure. That is what the medical bill review tool is designed to do. It starts with one bill. Not every bill in the house, not every medical problem from the last 6 months. One bill, one amount, one date, one demand for payment. The tool helps the senior take that bill out of the fog and attach it back to reality. What care does it belong to? What provider sent it? Does the name on the bill match the care the patient remembers? Does the amount match what the insurance company, Medicare notice, or plan explanation says? If the numbers do not line up, the senior has found the place where the bill needs to explain itself. From there, the tool shifts the senior from reacting to documenting. Instead of relying on memory, the senior begins building a record. The bill, the insurance explanation, the phone calls, the names, the dates, the promises, the missing documents. They all belong in one place. That record matters because vague answers are much harder to challenge when everything is scattered. The tool also changes the tone of the conversation. The senior is not begging for help. The senior is not accusing everyone of wrongdoing. The senior is calmly asking the system to support the balance it wants paid. That is the whole point of make them prove it. If the bill is valid, the proof should exist. If the balance belongs to the patient, the path should be clear. If something is missing, the senior should know that before money leaves the bank account. This method does not guarantee the bill will disappear. Oh, that would be dishonest. Some bills are legitimate. Some balances are owed. But even when a bill is valid, the senior deserves to understand it before paying it. The power is in the process. Slow it down, get the facts, keep the record, make the bill earn trust. Let's give an example. Meet Elaine. Elaine is 72. She had what she thought was a routine scan. Nothing about the visit felt unusual. She went in, gave her insurance info, had the scan, went home expecting the bill to be handled through the normal process. Then the paperwork arrived. One document suggested her share might be $136. That was not welcome, but it was understandable. Then another bill arrived from a radiology group, and that amount was $684. Now Elaine was not just looking at a bill, she is looking at a problem. The name on the bill does not match the place she remembers. The amount does not match what she expected. The patient portal shows the higher balance. The paperwork does not clearly explain why she now owes $548 more than she thought. That is why she is tense. I'm getting tense. Not because she is trying to avoid a legitimate bill, not because she thinks every bill is wrong, because the system is asking her to pay before the story makes sense. So Elaine does not hit the payment button. She does not ignore the bill either. She opens the Make Them Prove It medical bill review tool and starts building a record. She wants to know what service created the charge, who the radiology group is, why the date and amount appear the way they do, what insurance actually paid, and why the remaining balance is being assigned to her. That is the difference between panic and process. Elaine is not refusing to pay. She's refusing to pay blind. So now Elaine's going to open the review tool. One bill, one review, one record. Elaine's first move is not to argue. It is not to pay. It is not to call in a panic. Her first move is to slow the bill down. She opens the tool and starts with the one bill. Right? So not every medical visit she had this year, just one. Not every frustration with the system, one bill. The radiology bill for $684. The tool asks her to identify the bill, who sent it, what amount is being requested, what date of service is shown, how did the bill arrive, does she recognize the company name. That may sound basic, but it is powerful, because before Elaine can challenge the bill, compare it, question, or pay it, she has to know exactly what document she is dealing with. The bill is no longer just a scary number. It becomes a record, a sender, an amount, a date, a claim service, a document that now has to explain itself. This is how the pressure starts to change. Elaine is no longer reacting to the bill. She is examining it. And once the bill is inside the review tool, it cannot float around as confusion anymore. It has to become specific. That is the first step in taking control. The first thing Elaine notices is not the amount. It is the name. The bill says Radiology Associates, but Elaine does not remember going to a place called Radiology Associates. She remembers the imaging center. She remembers the scan. She remembers checking in, showing her insurance card, and then going home. But this name on the bill is not the name she expected to see. Well, that is where the review tool slows the process down. An unfamiliar name does not automatically mean the bill is wrong. That is key. A radiology group may have interpreted the scan. A separate professional group may have billed apart from the facility. A billing company may be collecting for a provider, and the system may have a legitimate explanation. But Elaine should not have to guess. If a company she does not recognize is asking her for $684, that company needs to explain who it is, what service it provided, where the service happened, when it happened, and how it is connected to her care. This is the first proof problem. Elaine is not saying, I refuse to pay. She is saying, I do not yet understand who is billing me. And that changes the conversation. The bill can no longer hide behind the balance. It has to identify itself. It has to connect to the scan Elaine actually received. And it has to show whether insurance processed the claim and why the remaining balance is being pushed back to her. That is why the workbook asks the question early. Do you recognize the company name? Because when the answer is no, the next step is not payment. The next step is proof. Therefore, Elaine is beginning the correct way with the simplest rule in the workbook, one bill at a time. Because medical billing confusion grows quickly when everything gets mixed together. Senior may have one paper bill, one portal balance, one insurance explanation, one old statement, one new notice, and one phone message all sitting in the same pile. Before long, the question is no longer clear. Is this the same bill? Is this a new bill? Is this a corrected bill? Is this from the provider, the facility, the radiology group, the insurance group, or someone else entirely? The workbook stops that from happening. It asks Elaine to identify the bill in front of her, not the whole medical event, not every document she has received. Just this one bill. Who sent it? What kind of bill is it? How much are they asking for? What date of service is shown? Is there a due date or deadline? Who is actually demanding payment? Might sound basic, but it is the first act of control. Bill is no longer just a frightening number. It becomes a specific record, a sender, an amount, a date, a demand, a document that can be compared, questioned, tracked, and challenged if necessary. For Elaine, that means the $684 radiology bill is now separated from the noise around it. She can see what the bill says, what it does not say, and what it still has to prove. This is how the process begins. Not with panic, not with payment, with identification. Before a bill can be trusted, it has to be pinned down. Elaine is now at the workbook page called Match the Bill to the Care. This is where the tool asks a simple but powerful question. What care is this bill actually about? That question matters because a bill can look complete and still fail this test. It may show a balance, it may show a date, it may show a payment address, and might even show the words patient responsibility. But none of that proves the bill is clearly connected to care that she recognizes. The workbook focuses Elaine on 3 warning signs. The first warning sign is an unfamiliar name. Elaine remembers the imaging center, but the bill came from a radiology group. That may be legitimate. A separate radiologist may have read the scan, but Elaine should not have to guess. The bill has to explain who this group is and how it became part of her care. The second warning sign is an unclear service. Elaine needs to know what the charge is actually for. Is it for the scan itself, the interpretation of the scan, a facility fee, a separate professional charge? If the bill does not clearly, Elaine is now at the workbook page called Match the Bill to the Care. This is where the tool asks a simple but powerful question. What care is this bill actually about? That question matters because a bill can look complete and still fail the test. It may show a balance, it may show a date, it may show a payment address, it might even show the words patient responsibility. But none of that proves the bill is clearly connected to care Elaine recognizes. The workbook focuses Elaine on 3 warning signs. The first warning sign is an unfamiliar name. Elaine remembers the imaging center, but the bill came from a radiology group. That may be legitimate. A separate radiologist may have read the scan, but Elaine should not have to guess. The bill has to explain who this group is and how it became part of her care. The second warning sign is an unclear service. Elaine needs to know what the charge is actually for. Is it for the scan itself, the interpretation of the scan, a facility fee, a separate professional charge? If the bill does not clearly say what service created the balance, it has not explained sufficiently. The third warning sign is a date that does not make sense. Sometimes dates differ for legitimate reasons. A test may be performed on one date and interpreted on another. A lab may process something later. A separate provider may bill on a different service date. But if the date does not match what Elaine remembers, the bill has to explain why. This page is not accusing anyone of wrongdoing. It is setting a standard. Before Ellen pays the bill, it should connect to real care in a way she can understand. If the name is unfamiliar, the service is unclear, or the date does not match, the workbook does not tell Elaine to panic. It tells her to document the concern and ask for proof. That is how the bill starts moving from confusion to accountability. Elaine has now reached the analysis page. This is the point where the workbook stops treating the bill as one big cloud of confusion and asks Elaine to identify the specific problem that is blocking a responsible decision. That matters because confusion is not just one thing. Sometimes the problem is the name on the bill. The person recognizes the care, but not the company asking for money. That's Elaine's first problem. She remembers the scan, but she does not remember choosing or visiting radiology associates. Perhaps that group read the scan. Maybe they are a separate professional billing group. Maybe they're legitimate, but until the connection is explained, Elaine cannot safely treat the balance as proven. Sometimes the problem is the service itself, and the bill may demand payment, but not clearly says what service created the charge. It may say just professional services, patient responsibility, medical services, or simply just show a balance. That is not enough. A senior needs to know what service was provided before deciding whether the bill makes sense. Sometimes the problem is the date. The date of service may not match the day the patient remembers going in for care. That does not always mean the bill is wrong. Let's make that clear. A scan may be performed on one day and interpreted on another. A lab may process a specimen later. A separate provider may bill under a date the patient did not expect. But again, the patient should not have to guess. The date has to be explained. This is why the workbook asks Elaine to choose the concern that best fits the bill. Not because only one person can exist, one problem can exist. Several problems may exist. But the workbook needs a starting point. It needs to know what is creating the most uncertainty right now, so it can guide Elaine to the right script, the right message, and the right proof request. That's the difference between complaining and acting, where Elaine is not just saying, this bill is confusing, she is identifying the reason it is confusing. If the provider name is unfamiliar, the workbook sends her toward the unfamiliar provider analysis. If the service is unclear, it sends her toward the service explanation analysis. And if the date does not match, she will be sent toward the date of service analysis. Each of these three paths have a purpose. Each path asks whether the concern has been cleared, partially cleared, or not cleared. And each path leads to practical language she can use in a phone call, text message, email, or personal visit. This is where the workbook becomes more than a form. It becomes a decision tool. Elaine is moving from emotion to structure. She's not trying to solve the whole medical billing system. She is not trying to become a billing expert. She is asking one disciplined question. What is the main proof problem with this bill right now? Once she knows that, she can act. She can ask the radiology group to identify itself. She can ask for the service behind the charge. She can ask why the date appears the way it does. She can ask for the explanation in writing. She can ask even that the account be placed under review while the proof is being provided. That is how pressure changes. The bill is no longer just demanding money. The bill is being tested against facts, and for Elaine, that is the beginning of control. In this scenario, Elaine chose the first concern, unfamiliar provider or company. That matters because the name on the bill is the first place the story breaks. Elaine remembers the imaging center. She remembers the scan. She remembers the appointment, but the bill in her hand is from Radiology Associates, and that is not the name she remembers from the place where she received care. This does not automatically mean the bill is wrong. The point is important. A medical visit can create bills from people and companies the patient never meets. A radiologist may interpret a scan after the appointment. A lab may process a specimen somewhere else. A hospital may use outside physician groups. An ambulance company, anesthesia group, pathology group, or billing company may appear later with a name the patient does not recognize. To the billing system, that might be normal. Unfortunately, to Elaine, it feels like a stranger is asking for money. And that is the problem. The workbook does not tell Elaine to refuse the bill. It tells her to make the bill identify itself. Who are you? What service did you provide? Where did it happen? When did it happen? How are you connected to the care I received? Was insurance billed? Why is this balance being assigned to me? Those are not hostile questions. They are basic proof questions. If Radiology Associates legitimately read Elaine's scan, they should be able to explain that clearly. They should be able to connect their bill to the imaging center, to the date of care, to the service performed, to the insurance claim, and to the remaining balance. Until they do, Elaine is not ready to pay blind. This is where the workbook gives us structure. It helps to determine whether the unfamiliar name has been cleared as a concern. Did the company explain who they are? Did they explain how they were involved? Did they identify the service? Did they connect it to the scan? Did they explain how the amount was calculated? The answer is yes. Elaine can move forward to the next review step. If the answer is partial, she asks for the missing facts. If the answer is no, she sends the notice. That is the practical power of the workbook. It turns a vague feeling, I don't recognize this name, into a specific action. Explain who you are and prove how this bill belongs to my care. She's not being difficult. She's not applying. She is applying a standard. A bill from an unfamiliar name must connect itself to real care before it earns trust. And now we'll find out the result of the investigation, asking the question, did they actually identify the service? Now, this is the trap that Elaine has to avoid. A billing office may answer the question without really answering it. They may say, this is for radiology, and that's not enough. Radiology is a category. Elaine needs to know whether this charge is for the scan itself, the reading of the scan, a separate physician interpretation, a facility charge, or something else tied to the same visit. That difference matters because each one can be billed differently, processed differently, and assigned to the patient differently. So in essence, Elaine is not just asking, what department is this from? She is really asking, what exact service created the $684 balance? If the answer clearly identifies the service and connects it to the scan she received, this concern may be clear. If the answer only gives a vague label, the concern is still open. And if the answer is just, that is our balance, then the bill has proven nothing. This is where the workbook protects Elaine from being pushed past the real question. The issue is not whether the billing system has a charge. The issue is whether the charge has been explained well enough for Elaine to evaluate. Until she knows what service created the balance, she cannot compare it properly with the insurance explanation. She cannot tell whether the amount makes sense, and she cannot make a responsible payment decision. So the next move is clear. If the service is vague, Elaine asks for an itemized bill and a written explanation of the exact service behind the charge. Not a category, not a balance, the actual service. The next discussion is in regard to the third major concern: the date does not match. Now we're going to move to this third concern. The bill shows a date of service, but that date does not match the cash remittance. This matters because the data is not just the detail. It is one of the main ways Elaine matches the bill to the insurance explanation, the appointment, the provider, and her own records. If the date is wrong, she may be looking at the wrong claim. If the date is different, she needs to know why. In her scan, there may be a real explanation. The scan could have been performed on one date and read by the radiologist on another. This imaging center may have one service date, while the radiology group uses a different date for the interpretation. But that explanation will be provided. Elaine should not have to guess whether the date means a second service, a delayed reading, a corrected claim, a duplicate bill, or a billing error. So the workbook focuses the question: why does the date appear on this bill if the billing office can connect the date to the scan, the radiologist's work, the claim, and the insurance explanation? Then this concern may be cleared. If they cannot, Elaine does not pay yet. She asks for a written explanation or corrected bill showing the service date, the actual service, who performed it, where it happened, and how it connects to the cash remembers. A bill of the date that does not make sense is not ready for payment pressure. The date has to connect to the care. Now we'll do our investigation to determine why does the date not match. Elaine then checks the date of service. This is where a medical bill can fool people. A date on a bill looks official, but it may not mean that the patient thinks it means. Elaine may remember the day she went for the scan. The radiology group may be using the day the scan was read. The billing system may be using the day the claim was entered, corrected, or processed. The insurance explanation may show still another date. That is why this matters. Date does not match. Elaine may not be comparing the right documents. She may be looking at a provider bill for one service and an insurance explanation for another. She may think the bill is wrong when the dates simply represent different parts of the same event. Or she may uncover a real error, wrong date, wrong claim, duplicate charge, or charge connected to care she did not receive. The date is not just a calendar entry. It is the bridge between the bill, the service, the provider, the claim, and the insurance explanation. So Elaine asks a precise question. Why is this date on this bill? Not, do I owe this? Not, can you lower it? Not, why is healthcare so expensive? First, what does this date represent? If the answer is that was the date the radiologist interpreted your scan, then Elaine can compare that explanation against the scan date, the provider name, and the insurance document. If the answer is yes, this is just what the system chose, then the date has not been proven. If the billing office cannot connect the date to the actual service, Elaine does not pay yet. She asks for a written explanation or corrected bill, and she asks that the account be placed under review while that proof is pending. That's called discipline. The date must connect the bill to the real care. Without that connection, the bill is just floating out there. So, in conclusion, we can say at this point, Elaine has done what most people never get the chance to do. She has slowed the bill down, taken the pressure out of the payment button, and moved the problem into a record. She has identified the bill, connected it to the case, tested the name, tested the service, tested the date, and separated what is known from what still has to be proven. That's the real purpose of the workbook. It does not promise that every bill will disappear. It does not tell Elaine that every provider is wrong. It does not turn her into a medical billing expert. It gives us something more practical, a method. She is no longer sitting at the kitchen table with a confusing bill and a knot in her stomach. She has a structured record. She knows what questions have to be answered. She knows what notice to send. She knows what proof is missing. She knows when to follow up and knows that paying should come after understanding, not before it. That is the lesson for every senior watching this. Let me repeat it. That's the lesson. She knows that paying should come after understanding, not before it. When a medical bill arrives, especially one that is unexpected, unclear, unfamiliar, or, as you may know, larger than what insurance seems to show, the first move must not be panic. It should not be silence, and it should not be, certainly, not be automatic payment. The first move is to slow the process down, make the bill identify itself, make it connect to care, make it explain the service, make it explain the date, make it match the insurance record, and then make it show why the balance belongs to you. If the bill is valid, the proof should exist. If the balance is correct, the path should be clear. And if something is missing, the senior deserves to know that before money leaves the bank account. That is what make them prove it means, not anger, not accusation, not refusal. Proof before payment, records before pressure, knowledge before fear. The bill may still have to be paid, but if it is paid, it should be paid because it has earned trust, not because confusion won. Let me just share with you now how to get a copy of our workbook. The Senior Power Method, as we see, works because it gives you something practical to do before confusion turns into payment pressure. Elaine did not need to become a billing expert. She needed a way to slow the bill down, organize her facts, ask the right questions, and create a record before deciding what to do. And that is why we created this workbook. It walks you through the same process that Elaine used. You identify the bill, you connect it to the care, you check whether the provider name makes sense, you look at the service, the date, the insurance, explanations, the amount requested, and so on. And then the workbook will help you prepare the right notice so you are not just calling in circles or relying on memory. Remember, the goal is not to start a fight. The goal is to get clarity. If the bill is valid, the proof should exist. If the balance is correct, the explanation should be clear. If something is missing, you deserve to know that before money leaves your bank account. Request a copy of this workbook, which at this point we are sharing with you at no cost. Please send an email to me, jmkushnir12 at gmail.com. And just in the subject line, I write medical bill workbook. And in the message, simply say, please send me the Make Them Prove It medical review workbook. Use it for one bill at a time. Keep your records, save your notices, write down who you contacted and what they said. Do not sign blind. Do not pay blind. Make them prove it. I want to thank you for spending this very considerable time with us today. Let us stay connected. And let me just ask you, please, to subscribe, to like us and so forth. It means a lot. Not easy putting these together, but it is well worthwhile for us to do this. It really gives us a good feeling. So until the next episode, next time, wish you all the best and look forward to seeing you again. Take care.